My throttle crafting skills, I feel, are honed to a level where I can confidently offer these throttles. Damn, Kyle, nobody's gonna buy one from you now. You really shot yourself in the foot with that one, dude.
Funky.
I'm making throttles to sell. Let me show you the ergonomics on like the couple of prototypes that I've done. These are installed on the Paramotor. This was when I was actually drilling the holes in them and using bolts to hold them together. Little artsy thing going on with that. I've been using this elastic strap. It goes on your hand like an afterthought, okay? I can taper the throttle and customize it so that you got action with these two fingers. You can pinch stuff and operate things. You can hold full power. You got room for your toggle underneath your hand right there. These were just test beds and they work, and I'm happy with them. This is the current stash of throttles. These are the ones I was calling duds. And what I mean by that is I'm not selling the ones that have unused holes in them. I'm using these for the personal school paramotor fleet. Hence, duds for sale, still fully functional. They got holes. I ended up gluing these together. This thing is solid, okay? You're not gonna break these throttles. These are all weld, all composite, all glued together. Yeah, I've really taken the time to kind of whittle on these things and make them right. I got different color options available. These are not polished. These are just rough sanded. They're functional throttles, right? Here's one that's gluing together right here. Here's two throttle triggers right here. I got one in blue and one in red. And here's several iterations that I either took off of throttles or didn't use. Here's an older design that was, I never did even drill the holes in that. That's the black carbon fiber. But I modeled the new ones on these plugs here. I've been doing these things for many years. Let me show you some of the problems that I've had with previous throttles. These throttles are copies of an air conception style throttle. Now I've got an air conception here, and this is a factory throttle right here. It looks like that, and this throttle looks like this. It's not a direct copy, but air conception is onto something with their throttle. See, this one goes a little deep. I like a little more gap behind there. The foam doesn't have to be so big. That's why I went with the wrap. Button's okay on these. It's plastic. I like a stainless steel, good meaty, heavy duty button. I don't currently have anything molded for an electric start option. That may be something that I work on once I get these initial orders out and recoup some investment. But this is an air conception factory throttle. I was getting these from a guy in another country. They were being built with substandard parts, but I like the ergonomics enough that I bought several of these throttles. And you can see I've already replaced the buttons on all these. Oh, except for that one. That's the original shit button. All these buttons work. All the failures came from usually the back connection here would get loose and that would cause some kind of havoc, or we would have a short wire. This brake cable right here. This is not the type of cable that I use. It had a little sharp burr. The burr dug into the wire right there, caused a motor outage. The original copy throttles, the wire was substandard. It would corrode and break. Not so great. The straps are just cheap. I've stolen straps from other machines and hand straps. Yeah, that trigger. The throttle broke, and I was on the radio. I couldn't tell exactly what was going on. It just came off of it. It 3D printed. That worked, you can't see. Like I say, I've been messing with these things for years. There's years of time and research, observations spent on these throttles and what makes them work and what makes them not work. And I've got it down to a spot where they work. And it's funny, you know, at the end of the stream, it was one of these. It was the blade connector that this part broke right there. Since then I've switched, and now I'm using the type that have complete coverage with plastic all the way to the ends. Maybe that supports it. Maybe those won't break. I don't know. Still doesn't take away the fact that you should never trust your paramotor no matter what you have on it. But that's what I'm doing with these custom throttles now. I'll sell you one. They're $300 each. This first production runs $300 each. You want custom house? Contact description below. Just send me an email. We'll go from there. It's as easy as that, guys. It's as easy as that. If you'd like to continue watching this video, I will leave on the video I made about how I was initially making these. I was filming myself making one. I don't know, when they came out of the mold, I was like, hey, let's video like the first one that I build, and this is how I'm gonna build it. But then I ran into some issues as I started doing reps on it. And as you do reps on anything, get a little better. Things start to get honed. And so my throttle crafting skills, I feel, are honed to a level where I can confidently offer these throttles. Damn, Kyle, nobody's gonna buy one from you now. the pain and anguish of not being able to communicate properly. You ever do look around the shop and it starts to feel a little overwhelming? Like, damn dude, you done dumped your throttle graveyard out on the floor. Now you gotta clean up a mess. It was due to the previous 3D printed throttle bodies where I decided to go with a carbon fiber composite material to make my throttle bodies. There'd be no more cracking and busting up with this stuff. This is molding techniques. I'm not going to go into details, but you want to get the carbon fiber all wetted out real good. And then this is a compression mold. Once it's wetted and in place, you just push the two halves together, squeeze it tight, make sure there's mold release in there, and then you pop it out later when it's done. Now obviously I'm not making every single tiny component. I do buy this cable conduit on a roll, cut it to length, to my specs, and you want to make sure that the ends are taken care of. This was something I learned way back in my throttle history. If you waller out the little plastic tube a little bit, it makes it slide so much better. These end caps are important as well. It keeps the little metal rods from shifting inside the conduit. And I make a few at a time. The other hardware is the barrel connector that goes onto the carburetor bracket. I make these from a little piece of hex stock that I got from, I don't know, somewhere. I got it from somewhere. But I'll cut these things out on the lathe. It takes me about 20 minutes to carve one out. I could put any thread pitch that you want on there. Typically I do 1/4 by 20 because I've got a pile of nuts in a bin. But if you had a specific requirement, we could certainly thread these to any pitch desirable. After the epoxy cures, you want to take them out of the mold. And this was maybe my first or second one that I popped out of this mold. It was a bit tight. I didn't film all the struggle I had getting it apart. Now they slide open with a simple pull of the screwdriver, just like that. And these are your forged carbon fiber throttle bodies. We pop them off of the male side. They usually stick to the female side. Now for the triggers. I've been making these things out of aluminum, carbon fiber. I like the aluminum ones the best. And this is the pattern that I'm going to use to make the throttles that go onto these new ones. I know that the geometry is right, feels good. That's where the holes go. Again, this is something I've done a bunch of times, making these triggers for these throttles. The old 3D printed ones, they were just a joke. So having a good aluminum trigger, you ain't got to worry about the trigger breaking, that's for sure. I cut the handles out of a piece of pre-ordered carbon fiber tubing. I ordered this to my specifications. I got to sand down the end so that it secures tightly into the carbon fiber throttle body. And I've taken to gluing these in now, so they don't actually come apart. But it's all continuous carbon fiber epoxy matrix, and it holds together pretty dang good. And of course, if you're a smaller person or maybe a young lady, I have made these shorter to accommodate for a smaller hand size. The kill switch buttons that I use for a paramotor throttle application have these hard connections. I find that soldered connections tend to crack and break, but a mechanical connection does not. The wire is a high strand count 18 gauge silicone insulation. It's the good high quality stuff. I use this. It doesn't tend to break or corrode. There may be some trouble with the wire from time to time on a paramotor throttle, but not with these particular buttons. These buttons have stood the test of many years of use without fail. The best heat shrink that I've come across is a 3 that shrinks down to 1. A 3-to-1 with adhesive. It's marine grade heat shrink, and I do a couple layers at each end of this stuff so that it does not slip. Sometimes one will slip, but I find if I double up and do 2, we don't get a slip. So I do one over the wires, and then I put this not sure what you call it, this webbing, this expandable webbing that goes on there. And then I also use another connection with adhesive to hold all that together. It gives it some ruggedness, some stiffness close to the throttle body, and you want that so that you don't get damage at the connection there, and then again at the other end. My barrel connector, I just apply a little super glue onto the conduit and glue that in place. They always seem to hold just fine. And this is my solution to grounding the paramotor. While machining the barrel connector, you can see I put a little groove right there in it, and that's so I can wrap a long piece of this wire around there, and I just use the heat shrink to go over it. I may put a drop of super glue on there to hold it, but I use the heat shrink to squeeze that wire down into that little gap, and it provides a good ground, and you only have one wire coming out of the throttle so that you can put it against your coil. And that's how you stop the paramotor. But this I find is a very good solution while also being more convenient and easier to install. These little ratchet pliers are the best for connecting. Again, I don't solder. I put on heat shrink and I use mechanical connections, and then this heat shrink adhesive, it bites down and provides some support for the little blade connector. And hopefully this solves the last issue that I had experienced with paramotor throttle failures. Is the actual connectors themselves. Next, I put on the control cable onto the throttle trigger and install that onto the handle. My current favorite solution for a grip comfort, sort of a buffer between your hand and the carbon fiber, is tennis racket wrap. Think about it. It's made for this application so you can get a good grip yet be comfortable. It's also sweat absorbent. I just use a little dab of super glue, put that on there. It provides for a very comfortable grip. Speaking of comfort, we had already mentioned the elastic band. This is how I kind of calibrate how tight that I want it. Put a little mark, and I find that using these zip ties, the little dab of super glue to hold it where you want it. Now, when you're putting a zip tie and putting a strap on any throttle, you want to make sure that the knuckle of that zip tie is right at the other side of your fingers, where when you grab the throttle, and I'm going to demonstrate it right here, you don't feel the knuckle. The little zip tie knuckle is sticking right in the gap, so that when you operate the throttle, you don't feel that little knuckle poking into any part of your skin. And probably the biggest safety addition on any paramotor is a piece of shock cord, also called bungee cord. I always put this on every throttle cable I have so that I can keep it from going through the net or through a loose net into the propeller. I'm still here, still talking to this camera, standing in the shop, gotta clean my mess. Holler if you want one, holler if you need training. I'm gonna get back to work. I ain't got much time messing around with this anymore, making videos about it. I just need to go do it. So if I don't see you soon, it's because things got busy. Season's opening up. I've already trained some students this year, and I think my schedule's more or less full after today. It's constantly in flux though. Don't hesitate on reaching out to me. It's because I say my schedule's full up. I mean, the schedule's always in flux. Sometimes people call and they say, I can be here tomorrow. And I say, okay, come on, looks good. Always kind of up in there. It should be, because based on weather. Obviously. That's what we've been doing around here at the Kylo School. Sneak peek into a future video idea, perhaps. I'm gonna take this Vortex Viper 200 and mount it over here on this Parajet Maverick frame. And we'll build up a paramotor, a Franken motor. I've got a few of those around now. A few Franken motors, just made out of parts from other motors, stuff like that. Paramotor shop, Kylo Customs, man. I think I'm gonna call the business Kylo Customs. If you want laser engraving on there, I got a buddy probably do that too pretty quick. So you want something engraved on your carbon fiber Kylo custom throttle, holler. See you soon next one. Much love, Kylo.